Hey, welcome to Beyond Synth Fundamentals. If you watched this week's episode, you know it was all about FM, and it was very intense. So we're going to slow things down a little bit and set up an FM patch on the Quantum, and just kind of go through the logic and how it works when you're designing an FM patch. We're going to start completely from scratch. We have just a sine wave. I have no plan on where this patch is going to go. I haven't rehearsed a patch or anything. What you're going to see is just designing a sound from scratch and just the kind of thought that goes into it. Let's start with a nice pad. The first step is determining what the structure of your patch is going to look like. So for now, let's do 2 carriers, and each one will have 2 modulators because we have 6 total operators available. So let's get that all set up. So K2, well, K1 mod, we set it so that it's modulated by 2 and 3. 4 we'll set up so it's modulated by 5 and 6. So here's what our patch looks like right now. We have 1 and 4 going out. Those are our carriers. And then 2 and 3 modulating 1, 5 and 6 modulating 4. But so for now we just have some sine waves. Let's set kernel 4 to be maybe at 5, at the 5th harmonic. So kernel 1 is at the 1st harmonic, and kernel 4 is at the 5th. Let's take 2 and 3 and set those for maybe 3 and 6. That sounds nice. Let's see. So now when we set these up, turn them on, pretty aggressive. So we can pull back. Until we're somewhere that we like. Now we can turn kernel 1 off. Now we'll just hear kernel 4. Let's do 2 and 4. Wait, do we have this at 4? We have this at 5. So let's do 5. So now we have kernel 4 at 5 being modulated by 2 and 5. Just changing the amounts to get somewhere nice. Okay, so that's our first texture. That's kernel 4, and then here's kernel 1. They're a little similar. Let's try to make the first set a little different. So instead of doing 3 and 6, let's do 10 and 6. But let's really put a lot of the 10. Let's determine the overall amplitude curve of our patch. So that's going to be the amp envelope of kernel 1 and 4. So let's start with 1. We're doing a pad, so we want slow movement. And let's have 4 come in a little sooner. And let's have it drop out towards the middle and then come back. So that's our overall motion. So now let's get the movement of our timbre. So we can have it so that it starts off kind of dead and then brightens up. Or we can do the opposite. We can set it so that when it's first fading in, that's as bright as it gets, and then it'll kind of tone down as it gets louder. It's nice, but something is missing. I almost want more fundamental in that first onset. So let's have K1 fade in sooner, and K2 will start affecting it a little bit later. That's really nice. Let's pull back on kernel 2 a little bit. That's the the 10 ratio. So it's pretty nice, but let's do some key scaling. So now I'm setting it so that as we go up the keyboard, we lose K1 a little bit. And as we go down the keyboard, it gets louder. So that gives us a little bit more fundamental in our attack towards the lower end and a little less towards the high end. Now we can do the opposite for 4, maybe increase towards the high end, decrease towards the low end, or maybe we'll increase towards the low end and the high end and just kind of drop towards the middle. I mean, I think that's a pretty nice pad. So now let's add some LFO just to our pitch in general, but let's make it controlled by aftertouch so that when you put extra pressure onto the keyboard, you'll get some LFO modulation of pitch. So then I also added some reverb. Maybe we'll also add a light phaser. And there it is, an FM dream. So let's start over and do just kind of a regular E-piano patch sort of thing. So now, just like before, we're starting with a sine wave oscillator. Well, an operator. We have just one, K1. So this one, let's just use one carrier, but let's use 3 modulators for it. And then 1 modulator on one of those modulators. So for 1, let's do 2, 3, and 4. So now we have 3 modulators on K1. K4, let's have modulated by K5. We're not going to use K6 at all. So right now we just got very nice sine wave. For K2, we'll turn that on. We'll use that to set our kind of bass timbre. Something kind of saw wave-ish. So we'll go 1 to 1. We want a little bit of bite on that, on the onset. Maybe even a little more. Now let's stick with that. So now our envelope, this is K1's envelope. So this will be our overall amplitude. Because it's a keyboard patch, we'll have no sustain, instant attack, because it's a keyboard patch. That dies out a little too fast. Maybe we'll do something like this. Okay, so now we choose K2's envelope. So remember, we want extra bite on the onset of the note. So now K3, now with keyboard sounds, when you play a chord or any note, as it fades out, the overtones will kind of shift a little bit, and those higher overtones will kind of come through. So let's use K3 and give it maybe a 5. So that's going to fade in. So you can hear it come through at the end there. So now we've got the main body of our sound. I think we actually lose K2 a little bit too fast. So now K4 will be the initial hammer sound. So when we hit the key, you'll hear this initial kind of gross transient, and then you'll move on to the main body of the sound. So for that, let's do a really high ratio. That's way too clicky. That's like a harpsichord now. Like a really gross harpsichord. Let's do... Yeah, lowering the levels really cleans it up. So K5 is modulating K4, which is modulating K1. So K5, let's turn that on. And for K5, we'll use a ratio, but we'll use a non-integer ratio. Actually, let's do that for K4. So this is a sound that we get from it. Just chaos. So for K5, let's do a fixed frequency. Let's do like 700 hertz. It's a little too rubbery, personally. I think we can get that to sound a little better. Let's change the ratio to like 26 and change. So now let's do some keyboard scaling. The main carrier, we want it to be higher in the low end and then kind of lose strength as it goes to the higher end. This kind of mimics, so on a piano, as you go up, you get these bright, almost tinny sounds where they kind of lose the fundamental. So then let's take K3. This creates those overtones that fade in. So we want more of those in the low end. So then for K4, let's make that velocity sensitive. And then let's also add velocity sensitivity to our carrier and a little bit to our main overtones. Let's also put more of the transient towards the high end and less in the low end. Ah, I see. Okay, so I was going a little heavy on K2. If you take K2 back, it actually sounds very pleasant. Okay, so now instead of chorus, let's do some tremolo. So to add tremolo, you assign an LFO to your VCA volume. So there we go. That's maybe a little too much. Just kind of a gentle. Yeah. And then where we had the chorus, let's do a light phaser again. I mean, that's great. I might have a little bit too much of K3. And let's add a little more of K1. drop K2 a little more. Okay, let's try it now. I mean, you can really keep tweaking these patches all day. That's one of the fun things about FM. Anyway, this has been a very special FM episode of Beyond Synth Fundamentals. I'll catch you next week. Happy synthing.